Well, good morning, everyone. The hearing will come to order. This is the subcommittee's first hearing of the year. So welcome to all our returning members. Glad to have you back and always appreciate your attention to these important issues that we face here in the subcommittee. Today we're going to hear from the Internal Revenue Service Commissioner, John Koskinen. Welcome, Commissioner. We appreciate your taking the time to be with us today, and especially since the budget was released so recently. Thank you for being here. As a matter of housekeeping, we're going to follow the 5-minute rule that we did last year. Members are going to be recognized in order of seniority, those that were here when the meeting started, and the latecomers will be recognized in order of their arrival, and we'll go back and forth from side to side. And if everyone will try to keep their questions and comments to 5 minutes, then everybody will have a chance to be heard. Now, for the past 5 years, the IRS budget request, in my view, has been a little bit unrealistic, a little bit excessive, because it's averaged $1.6 billion, or 14% above the last year's enacted level. And the IRS hasn't received either a dollar or a percentage increase of that magnitude over the past 20 years, so history would not seem to be in your favor. Now, this year's request is not quite as excessive. For 2017, the IRS is requesting $12.3 billion. That's $1 billion, or 9.3% increase over last year. However, less than 20% of the budget increase are for taxpayer services, strengthening cybersecurity and eliminating identity theft. And this committee believes that these three activities should be a top priority of the IRS, and they should be funded accordingly. In addition, the budget before us today removes some of the good government provisions that cure what we believe ails the IRS, such as reviewing the appropriateness of the videos that are made, complying with the Federal Records Act, guarding against excessive conference spending, upholding the confidentiality of taxpayer information, and prohibiting the targeting of taxpayers based on their ideological beliefs. Now, Commissioner, last year we asked you to show Congress and all Americans that it's no longer going to be business as usual at the IRS. So sometimes it's hard for us to take seriously this budget request when the IRS again asks for an unrealistically high amount that doesn't make customer service a priority and fails to adopt some of the good government reforms that we added in this committee last year. Moreover, the IRS has fallen short of its mission to provide top-quality tax services and fairness to all. For far too long, too many calls into the IRS are either abandoned, they're dropped, or they're met with a busy signal. Inexcusably, the last tax season, only 37% of all the calls that were answered by the IRS. Telephone wait times just about tripled since 2010, and the inventory of tax-related identity theft cases rose nearly 150% since 2014. So for the past 2 years, I've asked this agency to make customer service a priority, and each year we learn that customer service diminishes. Now, you may argue it's because the IRS budget has been cut, and I might argue that it's because the IRS chooses to spend its funds on other areas like the Affordable Care Act, bonuses, and conferences. But nevertheless, Congress included $290 million in the omnibus for the IRS to answer the phone to improve fraud detection and cybersecurity, and we expect to see results. Recent cyber attacks on the federal government and private businesses have all of us worried about identity theft, especially when it comes to filing taxes. Now, later today, the Oversight and Government Reform Committee is going to hold a hearing with your Chief Technology Officer on last week's IRS hardware failure and the destruction of an IRS hard drive despite a court preservation order to preserve its contents. Now, I look forward to hearing from you today on how the agency is providing taxpayers with both privacy and assistance. Along the lines of fairness, public confidence in the IRS was deeply betrayed when it came to light that the IRS was using inappropriate criteria for selecting tax-exempt applications for extra scrutiny. And so the omnibus took a major step toward restoring public confidence in the IRS by including a new provision that prohibits the IRS from using its funds to revise regulations for the 501c4 organizations. This committee would also caution the IRS against wading into further controversy, such as when you proposed draft regulations that would put charities or 501c3 organizations in the position of collecting and reporting Social Security numbers of their donors to the IRS. Members of this committee, other members, including myself, questioned the need for this, and we're glad to see the IRS formally withdraw the proposed rule. We don't want to see the IRS take any steps backwards. Now, with the budget release this past Tuesday, I look forward to hearing from you how the 2017 plan is going to modernize, transform your organization into one that's more customer service oriented, which stresses integrity and fairness to all. From what I've been able to observe, past funding cuts have clearly motivated the IRS to deliver more service online and increase automation. And every organization ought to constantly strive for greater efficiency. But these changes are meaningless without objective measures to evaluate their effectiveness. So I would encourage you to report back quantifiable results to the committee and to members to accommodate taxpayers. And we want to make sure that you also deal with folks that maybe aren't as technologically advanced as others. But let me close on a positive note, Commissioner. Let me thank you for your personal dedication to the success of the ABLE Act. Some of you all know that was the major reform to individuals with disabilities, first time in 25 years. Allows individuals with disabilities, autism, Down syndrome, to set up a tax-free savings account as long as they use those proceeds for qualified expenses. And that's going to give peace of mind to a lot of families. It's going to allow individuals with disabilities to achieve their full potential. And right now, 37 states have enacted some sort of ABLE Act legislation. I'm happy to report that my home state, Florida, has a state mandate to have it up and running by July 1 of this year. And it wouldn't have happened without your commitment and the commitment of the IRS to get those regulations out, make them understandable and simple. And so we thank you for that. On behalf of millions of individual disabilities around the country, thank you for that. So now I want to turn to Mr. Serrano for any opening statement that he might make.